Hey Facebook, what's going on? Still waiting for Instagram to fire up. It looks like Instagram's ready to go too. Happy, gosh, what's today? Monday? Is it Monday? Happy Monday. Happy Solstice week. Happy almost Christmas if you celebrate. Happy Hanukkah. Kwanzaa, I think, is coming up. What else is celebrated around this time of year? Happy whatever you celebrate. I hope that it's happy. And it feels, it's funny, I wanted to do this yesterday, but I was just not feeling it. I had like these intentions that I was going to get online and share some information with you because, I was feeling like, well, it's sort of time for the monthly update. But yesterday I was just like, I just need to rest. I woke up and I had all this gumption and all this gusto. And then about an hour and a half after waking up, I was like, nah, I think I'm just gonna lay low today. I didn't even take a shower yesterday. It was like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock before I even got out of my sweats. So I am definitely enjoying some quiet time, which is sort of what I wanted to talk about today. Today, I just want to share a little bit of information with you. Also give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions. I know that there's a lot happening right now, just personally and collectively. It's also the holidays, so it's kind of a crazy time of year anyway. And, the solstice is always a really, really powerful time, especially the December solstice as we move towards the end of the year. I always feel like this is such a magical, sort of mystical time between the 12th and the 21st. And I have the 12/12 event, the 12/12 energy gathering, which, by the way, I will put the link in the description. If you want to download the MP3 of that energy work, it was some next level stuff, man. It was so powerful. It was like this divine infusion, or this infusion of divine light. And then it was sort of a chakra attunement, and this light sort of moved all the way down the chakras and through the energy body. And then we went into the depths of, sort of the deep emotional depths where we have been sort of hanging out, these shadowy, murky places that many of us have been in pretty much this year, but especially since June when we had the equinox then. And then it was like taking our field out, expanding. It was really, really powerful. And so I will put the link to download the MP3. I have it online available for download. So if you want to do the energy session, the energy work, you can. It was so amazing and so wonderful. I love when we come together in these groups and I get to experience with you these powerful influxes of light and of energy that come in, because I never really know what's going to happen, either until we get in there. Obviously, since it was a 12/12 energy gathering, I knew it had something to do with sort of kicking off this passage of time between now and the solstice. So I knew that it was going to be powerful, but I never really know what's going to happen. And it was amazing and wonderful and so, so beautiful. And then this Friday, the 21st, for the solstice, I have another online event. So I'm going to put the link in the description. It's on my Facebook. It's on my Eventbrite, Andrew Martin Energy. You can find me on Eventbrite, but I'll post the link for that. I'm also going to put it on my Instagram and my Facebook. I think it's already on my Facebook if you go to my Facebook, Andrew Martin Energy. But that's going to be another energy gathering. It's an hour of healing work, energy work, coming together as a group in collective to really, really open up the space for these high frequency energies. It's like, so anyway, it's online, and even if you can't attend live, you get an MP3 of the session. So everyone who registers will get that recording. So sign up if you haven't signed up, because it's going to be amazing. And I just love being able to do this group energy work online, because everyone, from all over the world, we get to gather, and there's so many people that come in, and every time we join, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the energy gets more and more magnified and amplified. And so the more of us that can join together, the bigger the container will be to really anchor in these frequencies. So if you are around on Friday, or if you, like I said, if you register, you get the MP3 and you're guided to do so, please do, because I know it's going to be amazing. And I love doing this stuff. But the message really that I always feel is relevant during this time between, the 12/12 and the solstice, these numbers mirror each other. 12 and 21, if you put them up against each other, they're mirrors of one another. And I always feel like this period between the 12th and the 21st is super dreamy and super magical and also a little surreal. It's sort of like this sense of, I don't know, kind of being almost out of your experience for a bit, and then everything starts to integrate and everything starts to kind of get stitched back together. And I shared this, there was a short post that I shared a couple of days ago, I believe it was on the 10th or the 11th, Returning to the Surface was the name of it. And it really was this analogy and this image that I've been seeing as a diver who is on the bottom of the ocean floor, and she's pushing herself off and she's returning to the surface. And I always feel like this period between the 12th and the 21st is that returning to the surface as we integrate the lessons, as we integrate the wisdom, as we integrate the shifts and the clearings that we have undergone and have participated in and have created over the past year. I know that this year has been such a weird one. I mean, thumbs up or a heart emoji or even a poop emoji if it feels like this year has just been such a strange, surreal year. And I feel like in many ways we were given this really, really long leash to move away from ourselves. Of course, we're never separate from ourselves. We can't be separate from ourselves. We can only have the experience of separation, and we can only sort of magnify that should we choose to. But the truth is that we're always connected, right? But I feel like this past year, we gave ourselves a really, really long leash to move as far away from ourselves as we possibly could, to get that sense and that feeling of separation. And really, I think, so that we could see what life is like when we really go deeply into that divisive sort of separation consciousness, when we believe that, so what we need and what we desire is somewhere out there, and that our power is somewhere out there, and that something outside of us is more powerful, or it has the answer, or has the solution, or has the fix, or even just the idea that we're really broken or damaged to begin with, right? And so I feel like this year, and I experienced this, if you've been watching my shares this past few months, especially in October, I spoke about this, the crazy, toxic relationship, and I use that word very loosely here, that I was in this really strange toxic relationship where I was so far into my pain. I was so deeply into those old stories. I was so like hanging out in that wounded place. And I got a chance to see, like, this is what life is like when your pain is the one driving the bus. When you have not resolved this pain, you see how off kilter you are and how out of whack and out of balance you are when you're not in that place of truth, when you're not in that place of connection, and when you let the illusion sort of, pull you away from center. I know I'm using a lot of sort of vague language, and I hope it makes sense. But I really just wanted to talk about the lead up to the solstice. I wanted to open up, questions for you guys. If you have any questions about kind of what's going on, I won't necessarily be able to give you a reading. So if you're asking me like, what's going on in my relationship, I'm probably not going to be able to give you specifics, because that is a slippery slope, man. Once I start answering one personal question, then it's like the barrage is opened, and I get it. I understand. I'm the same way. I want answers. I want information. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments. Anything that you want to share, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I'm just feeling like this, next couple of days as we lead up to the solstice on Friday is a really, really potent time to get really still. And I know, doesn't that sound like the irony of all ironies, that one of the busiest times of year, when so many of us are with, distracted by holiday stuff, we're, ramping up for the, if we take a break from work, it's like this last crunch time before we get some time off, or for, whatever. So I know it's kind of crazy to think about being quiet and being still and sort of being on a sort of I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Not quarantine, but it kind of feels like we've been given this space to just pause for a moment. That's what it feels like. It feels like we've been given this space to just stop and sort of take a breath and take a beat while our aspects that we have been uncovering and sort of clarifying really get to come home. It's this sense of integration, and I keep hearing this word just being stitched back together. I mean, am I the only one? I know I'm not the only one. So, like, thumbs up and give me a heart emoji or a unicorn or a poop or whatever. I love the poop emoji. If you feel like this year has really been sort of shattered, like if you feel like you've been really broken apart, if you feel like you were really, sort of taken apart from the deepest part of your being. That's how I felt. I felt like it was like, okay, let's find the core of Andrew and then let's just like sort of tear him open. And I know this language sounds sort of violent, but that's what it felt like. It felt like a shattering. It felt like, just this disintegration of self, so that really, really old, deep stuff could bubble up to the surface, and then being given a chance to see, like, okay, if this is a belief that you still have, if this is a lens that you still choose to view your life through, then let's see what it's like when you go through life with this perspective. One of the things that I know is true, and I live my life from this perspective, is that when pain is present, we always create from there first. That is to say, if you think about in your life when you have some physical pain, let's just use physical pain as an example. Like if you have something that's broken, like literally a broken limb or a broken bone, or if you have a chronic condition that creates a lot of pain in your physical body, when that pain is present, it becomes like the biggest thing in the room, right? And everything becomes around how can I manage my experience around my pain or around my illness or around, it's like that becomes the loudest voice in the room. And it's because that pain is showing up to say, hey, I'm the bit that's still a little disintegrated. I'm the bit that's still a bit incongruent. I'm the part of you that has yet to be heard or be seen or be acknowledged. And so when pain is present, we create from there first. It's like it's always floating on the top of the surface. It's like the oil slick on top of the water. And to get to the clear, pure, clean water, you got to skim off that oil slick first, right? So when pain is present, it's always going to be front and center first, because that is the thing that is, or the issue or the belief or the story or whatever that really needs to be sort of unboxed and explored and felt and experienced, so that then that can move out of us and then we're left with sort of the refined, clarified self, right? If we think of the idea of refinement, it is, my granny used to say all the time, gold is refined through terrific heat. It takes a lot of intense heat to burn off the stuff that isn't gold. And so the refinement process is intense, man. It is no joke. It is pretty brutal. So when pain is present, we create from there first. And so this year in many ways was like, all right, well, here, sit down at this table and we're going to bring you a plate full of your pain. And you really are given this opportunity to experience what your reality is when you deny this pain, or you try to avoid it, or you don't do the work around it, or you don't give it the voice or the attention or the whatever. But isn't it interesting how the more we sit with this pain, the more that we understand it, the more resolved it can be. And then it just moves out of our awareness. And then it's like once we have that moment of healing and then that moment of transformation where we're able to move beyond that pain story or that, that pain point, then it's something that it's almost as if it never really happened. And what I mean by that is it's not magical thinking, it's not denying it, but it's like we see now that as those wounds are healed and once they're resolved and rectified, man, it's just moved on. It's just moved out because it wants to go. That's why it keeps coming up into our awareness. I don't look at emotion as negative or positive, as good or bad. I just look at it on a scale and on a spectrum. And the things that are, in the lower end of the spectrum or the more dense end of the spectrum, the fear, the anger, the rage, the jealousy, the, insecurity, the lack, the feelings of lack or worthlessness or whatever it is, or being unworthy, these come up because they're the ones that are saying, hey, on the scale and on the spectrum, we're the ones that are a little tangled. We're the ones that are a little unresolved. We're the ones that really need your love so that we can become we can become congruent. So I don't see this pain and this anguish and this heartbreak that so many of us have been sort of forced. I mean, forced is a strong word because we always have, free will, but it's almost like the pain was saying, yeah, you got free will, but you got to see how big and how massive and how major I am, how important I am. And so that pain sort of erupts into our awareness, and we really have no choice then but to really acknowledge it and to tend to it so that it can, stop taking up all the air in the room. So I didn't really have a point with today's live stream more than anything. Again, I just wanted to come on and chat and to see if you guys had any questions or if there's anything you wanted to chat about. Because this week before the 21st, as we move up into the 21st, it's like things are coming back. These parts of ourselves that had to go on this journey of discovery or this journey of expansion or this journey of growth. It's like the part of us that had to go into these dark, murky places to really feel that and experience that so that we could integrate that part of ourselves and let the pain go. It's like you let the pain go, but you keep the lesson. You let the pain go, but you keep the wisdom. You let the heartbreak and the, whatever it is, the disappointment and the disillusionment, you find a way to live through that and you find a way to let it go, but you keep the lesson and you keep the wisdom. And that's the beautiful thing, is those things are not regressive. Once we have that wisdom and that growth, it's a permanent part now of who we are. You can't unring a bell. Let's see. I'm just going to see if there's any questions. So from IG, the question, Ghost Reptile, how can I stay centered in the holidays while spending time alone? I think that really is just about create stillness, create a space for you to hear yourself, create time to be with yourself. I personally, the past couple of days, I have had, I've had some quiet time. I had a few clients on Saturday, but most of my Saturday was quiet. Yesterday I was really quiet. I have the day off today from clients as well. So it really is like finding the time to get still and get quiet. And whether that means journaling or whether that means meditating, whether that means honestly, yesterday I just sat on my bed yesterday and stared up at the ceiling and stared out the window. This is something that I have been rediscovering, this practice. When I was a kid, I used to do this all the time, where I would have moments where I would just lay in the grass and stare at the clouds, or I would lay on my floor and stare at the ceiling. And my mother was always like, what are you doing? What? And I just knew sort of intuitively that my mind needed time to just be still and to be quiet so that it could process and it could integrate. And because we are in this phase of integration right now, where all the lessons and the wisdom are coming home to sort of be integrated and woven into our fabric, and then they can be sort of acknowledged, and that's when it begins to pop into our awareness, is realizing that think of all the times in our day where our mind is just bombarded with information and stimulus, and think of how little time we actually spend just being silent and being still and being free from all that stimuli. So one of the things that I like to do when I have time is really make a concerted effort to not do anything and to be really still and to listen to what's going on, right? Sit in silence, listen to the body, what's going on physically, listen to the emotional self, what's going on emotionally, listen to the mind and to the mental self, what's going on up there, listen to the energy body, what's happening in my energy field, and just pay attention. Just be still, just be aware, just be silent, because those intuitive voices, those voices of the true self and of our guidance and of our teams, our light team, our God squad is what I've been calling them lately. It cuts from an empty, or it comes from a different place. It comes from a very silent, very still, very quiet, very small place. Those voices of our wisdom and our guidance are rarely really loud and really, assertive and really in your face. And at times they will be. But most of the time, it's a very quiet, still thing. So if you have the luxury of stillness, if you have the luxury of time to yourself and downtime this holiday season, certainly use it by sitting in stillness and in silence with yourself and just kind of figuring out what's going on in there, sort of investigate. And I know it's difficult if you've got family and if you're around family, because that can seem almost impossible to find stillness and quiet oftentimes with family. But it's just being present with whatever is there. And my number one piece of advice would be, man, be in the observer mode. Stephanie Azaria calls it the observer's perch, the cosmic path. She's an astrologer that I follow, and I talk about her a lot. I love her stuff. But she really talks about that observer's perch, and I've talked about cultivating the observer quite a bit in my work, and it is that understanding that, when I observe my thoughts, I see that I am not the one who is thinking. I am the one observing the one who is thinking. So when I am engaged with family, or I am in these situations that tend to be a little bit more intense, or tend to be a little bit more emotionally charged, or suddenly now I'm not in my, it's easy to be in the fucking vortex and in the zone and on my game when I'm home alone by myself in my apartment. It's not difficult at all to find myself connected and in a good space when I'm home alone. But when you get out there in the world and you're with your family and you're with all your people and all of the, the stuff that you've been dealing with for the past 20, 30, 40, 50, however years you've been, alive, suddenly it's more challenging and more difficult. So finding that observer's perspective and just watch. Wow, man, this is when I find myself really triggered. Wow, this conversation is really making some anger open up within me. Wow, my mom, my dad, my sister, my auntie, my uncle, my grandma, my grandpa, whatever, is really making me feel blah, blah, blah. So you can just really observe it and acknowledge it. And I think that sometimes is a good, well, not good way, but makes things a little more easy, a little bit more manageable when we're dealing with some of these emotionally charged situations, especially around the holidays with family. So, as these aspects of ourself are returning this week, it's really not a doing thing. It's really just a being thing. It is just being present with the self and acknowledging. It's sort of like the story of Christ being born in the manger, and this idea that these holy, the wise men and these holy men are bringing gifts to them. And I think that's a great metaphor for our own experience, right? The light returns on the 21st, and in the Northern Hemisphere, that's when days start to get longer. And this idea of the Christ child being this shining beacon of light, the star, and then drawing all of the angels and the oxen and the wise men and whoever else was coming to watch this experience. That's sort of what we have gone through, right? It's like these aspects of ourselves went off on these journeys to take us to these dark places, to take us to these murky depths, to take us to these places that many of us hadn't been in a long time. I mean, thumbs up, heart emoji, poop emoji, unicorn, whatever. If you found yourself, especially from the time June up until recently, around 11/11 in November, that was the time that we really were taken away from ourselves. We went on these journeys and this old stuff that we're like, wait a minute, I thought I already dealt with this. Why is this thing coming back? This is like freaking Groundhog Day. Because it really was an opportunity to find a way to love these things more completely and more deeply. What I say is that when anything repeats or recurs in your experience, when you feel like you're like, oh my God, this is total deja vu or Groundhog Day, I've already had this experience, it's because you have new information. That's the only reason anything ever repeats or recurs in our experiences. We have new information, and that new information allows us to come to a place with a deeper sense of compassion or a deeper sense of acceptance or a deeper sense of love for that part of ourselves. So when it comes back, it's because now it has wisdom, now it has information, now it has gifts that it is bearing. So as these parts of yourselves come home over the next couple of weeks, be open to receive the gifts that they are bringing you. Be open to receive the clarity and the insight and the wisdom and the guidance and the facts and the whatever, the revelations, the acknowledgement of like, oh my God, I get it now. Or, oh my God, I see it now. Or maybe I'm not clear. Maybe I'm still, sort of confused or unsure, but I have a deeper sense of this connection to myself. A lot of times we get so focused on the answer and we get so focused on the why and we get so focused on the understanding and the clarity and I need the facts and the figures And I understand that, trust me, with, the majority of my chart is in Virgo or Libra. So for me, it's all about taking these really high level abstract airy concepts and bringing them to earth and making them real. So I totally get the desire for the why and for that high level information. But the truth is that the mind is the only part of us that seeks the understanding from that logical, rational place. The mind is the only part of us that says 2 and 2 always has to equal 4. The spirit, the soul, the heart, the creator self, the expanded self really is only in it for the experience. And we understand from that perspective that it is the experience that brings clarity. Action brings clarity. Experience brings wisdom. I can't necessarily always be sitting on the sidelines trying to get an understanding in order to validate or justify my experience. Sometimes it's just about being present and saying, all right, I don't get this, I don't understand it, but I can allow myself to be present. I can allow myself to be here and to engage with whatever is coming up. So I think that this week, especially, do your best to acknowledge the part of you that wants the why and wants the understanding and wants it to be tied up in a nice little bow so that you can move on. But also understanding that sometimes clarity comes through just deciding that we're letting go. Sometimes clarity is just deciding that I'm moving on. Sometimes it's like saying, okay, I don't know why that relationship ended, but do I really need to know why? Isn't it enough to know that I am in a place now where I'm ready to move on? Isn't it enough to know that this thing that used to always cause me pain and every single time I show up here, it's still painful, that I can just trust that, you know what? Do I really need to understand why my hand gets burned every time I put it on the hot burner? Or is it enough to just say, you know what, I'm tired of my hand being burned. I don't necessarily need to understand the biochemicals process that happens when I, put my flesh on a red hot burner. I can just trust that it hurts. I can just trust that it is painful. I can just trust that it's not good for me. And then just walk away and understand that oftentimes the why comes in retrospect. Oftentimes the why makes sense after the fact when I go, oh my God, I see it now, duh. But the requirement for understanding is oftentimes a trick of the ego. That's another thing, is that I think oftentimes our mind knows that, well, if Andrew is distracted by trying to figure out why, then he's going to stay put. He's not going to be moving out of the comfort zone. He's going to, if I can give him this puzzle and this knot to try to unravel, he'll sit there until he's solved it. And so sometimes it's even being aware of that and saying, you know what, I'm not going to get engaged into this tussle of trying to untangle the knot. I'm just going to let the knot be there and continue to proceed. And as it becomes, apparent to me, the information that I need to unravel this, it'll become apparent to me. So it really is ultimately about just staying put. And what I mean by that is being in the moment, just being present with whatever is coming up for you. And that's a lot of what we received on the 12th, and the 12-12 energy gathering was just this massive influx of energy. And there wasn't a whole lot of information or description around why we were receiving or necessarily what it even was. And that's okay. Because trust me when I tell you, the feeling that was present of that energy was so far beyond any understanding that I even needed. It was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. Do I really need to stop and take myself out of it and make it now an intellectual exercise? So now I completely miss the experience. It's sort of like, when you see an amazing sunset and you're like, oh my God, where's my phone? I got to find I got to get a good picture of the sunset. And here, let me go to this higher place and let me mess with the settings on my phone, or let me move over here and try to get another. And by the time you get the perfect setup and the perfect vantage, the sunset is gone. So understanding that a lot of times what we need is to just be present for the experience. Don't get so focused and so caught up in trying to, photograph or manage or understand the experience that you completely miss it. Because that's what life is, right? It's just these moments. That's all it is. It's just a moment-to-moment thing. So, just be present. Just be present and let these parts of you reveal to you what they have gathered on their journeys over the past year. I still, to keep bringing it back to my own experience this summer with that dude that I was hanging out with, I'm still uncovering understandings and making connections about what really went down in that whole interaction over the past, what was it, like 4 or 5 months. And it's still, sort of echoing and reverberating within my field. And there are still times where I find myself triggered and I find myself sort of sucked back into that, really unhealthy, unhappy environment. But more than anything, what I see is like, man, I got a chance to see just how far and how deep that pain went. Just how far and how deep that wound went, and really find so much compassion for myself to see like, well, God, no wonder this has been a pattern that was so hard for me to break, because look how deep it was. And again, when pain is present, we create from there first. Another version of that is that, we never create above our lowest belief. And I talk about this one a lot. That, if I have a belief within me that says that I can't, I'm not worthy of love, or that love is for suckers, or that all men are dogs, or whatever, I'm never going to be able to attract the kind of relationship I might say that I want without looking at these beliefs, because I can't create above that lowest belief. So what we're seeing now this week as we move up to the 21st is as the light gets stronger and stronger, and as we return to the surface and break through, we see that so much of what we have gathered and so much of what we have brought to ourselves through this experience is barely even beginning to show itself. Like, we have just scratched the surface. It has really only started to sort of coalesce and to open itself up into our awareness. So it's about being patient. It's about trusting that when I need the information, I'll get it, right? When the why is important, I'll be given that too. And until I need the why, then I can just trust that the experience in the moment is enough. And 2019, in many ways, is going to be finally getting to the actual creation of the newness and the creation of the new self and the creation of the new world, and really stepping forward with this new understanding and saying, okay, now that I know about myself what I know about myself, how does that change the game? Right? How does that shift my perspective? How does that inform me now? If I know something about myself that I didn't know before, let's just use relationships as an example. If I know that I have a tendency to always want to be the people pleaser, then I'm just going to be really, really mindful of that part of me that may want to be the pleaser. And to look at him and say, I get him. I understand where he's coming from. No, he's not going to be the one making all the decisions, but I acknowledge him. I love him, and I'm aware of him. And so when that impulse or that response to always want to be the pleaser, sort of opens up within me, I can just look at him and say, no, honey, I get it. I love you, but we don't need you today. You're not the one driving the bus. We don't need to always be the pleaser. We can just be present. So I hope I'm making sense. I feel like I'm rambling. I hope that this is valuable for you, because, like I said, I wanted to do something yesterday, but I was just really, really feeling like, no, I just need to be still, and I need to rest, and I need to be quiet. And then last night, as I was coming home from the grocery store, I got the little nudge to say, hey, get online tomorrow and just do a live stream and just chat with people and sort of talk about what's happening this week. So more than anything this week, I think it's really just about being in receipt. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Shar. Just being in receipt of your truth, just being present to receive that wisdom, and just trust that it's going to make sense when it needs to make sense. And when it doesn't make sense, that's okay, right? It's not your job to try to figure everything out. I think especially now, our job is to be present to receive the blessings of the hard work that we have put in over the past, 9 months. So just let it come. Let it be present. Let it reveal itself to you, and just receive it. Just receive it. And understand that as the pieces continue to come home, it's going to make more and more sense. And it's another piece of the puzzle, and another piece of the puzzle, and another piece of the puzzle. So do you guys have any other questions about, what's going on right now, how to manage this, this corridor of energy between now and the 21st, or really through the end of the year? Next year is a 3-year numerically. So, 2019 equals 3 if you reduce it. And 3 is a really, really powerful number. It's when, mind, body, spirit really starts to come into alignment. It's when we really start to expand into a much fuller experience. So really next year is about kind of proceeding with all of our truth present. It's that understanding that, I don't know if you guys watch Drag Race, but I'm a huge Drag Race fan. And I just started watching All Stars 4, and Valentina, who is a fierce queen, was talking about, the first episode was just this past Friday, and Valentina, this fierce queen, was talking about how she's been painted as the villain in social media. She said a lot of people think that, she said a lot of people think that I am a snake. A lot of people think that I am the villain. She said a lot of people think that I'm, a beautiful, wonderful, happy, lovely person too. She said, but I'm all of that. She was like, I am the kind, sweet person, and I also always love the villain. And the point of that is to say that we are all of that. We are all of it. I am the highest light, and I am the lowest shadow. I am, all the way to the left, and I'm all the way to the right. I am the really kind, generous, funny, compassionate person, and I'm also the impatient, frustrated, angry asshole who doesn't like being in line behind you at the self-checkout when you don't know how to use the self-checkout. I'm getting ready to travel to see my family for the holidays, and I'm going to go to the airport, and the airport is always the place where my fucking demon comes out. Like my beast is always ready to erupt at the airport. And so I'm just present with that, and I understand, okay, when I come to the airport, I turn into the smallest version of myself. I turn into the least compassionate version of myself. So I have to be really, really present with myself when I'm in the airport, because I know that that's when I have a tendency and a propensity to get, I have this much patience. I have one nerve left, and you're fucking stomping all over it. So that's just who I am. And that's not something I try to fight. That's not something I try to deny. That's not something I try to heal. It's just I'm aware of that. It's just I understand that that's part of who I am. Right? So yeah, morning commute, getting on the tube, getting on the subway, being stuck in traffic. So understand that this is part of who you are. It's sort of like if you had a peanut allergy. You could spend the rest of your life running from corner to corner of the planet trying to find a way to heal or transform or shift your peanut allergy. Or you could just be present with the fact that you've got a peanut allergy, and you know that this means certain things about how you navigate the world. And so you just do the best that you can to avoid contact with peanuts, right? It's like, I know that when I go to the airport or I get in line at the self-checkout that I'm going to have this much patience. So I just have to be prepared mentally for my inner demon who wants to just erupt and burn it all down and get in fights with TSA people. Like, girl, that's not a wise use of your resources. So be present with your inner beast, and also don't let him be the one that drives the bus. So the point of this is to say that you can have the understanding of who and what you are. And it doesn't have to be something that's a liability. It doesn't have to be something that you have to heal or shift or change or transform or get rid of. Because I'm telling you, even if it is something that eventually needs to be healed or is healed, it cannot be healed until it is accepted. So no matter what it is, it always starts with acceptance and love and compassion for the self where you are right now. Okay, I get right now. Where I am right now is not my favorite place. Where I am right now, I'm not my happiest. Where I am right now, I'm the most frustrated I've ever been, or whatever. And just be present with that and acknowledge that and pull that to you. Our job is to give all of our aspects a seat at the table. Our primary function, and in this lifetime especially, is to master the self, master what you are given. So certainly you can heal stuff, certainly you can shift stuff, certainly you can transform stuff, but not until you have sat with it and understood it and learned how to love it and accept it. So you just love all of you as much as you can. You give all of your aspects a seat at the table, and you say, my brightest, most beautiful, most sparkly self that I can't wait to show everyone, and my darkest, funkiest, nastiest self, crustiest self that I hope no one ever sees. All of those aspects of me deserve my love and attention and my compassion and my acknowledgement. So, as our aspects come home to roost over the next few days and towards the end as we complete the year, because it's only a couple of weeks, y'all, and then we're into 2019. As these shifts continue and these aspects of ourselves continue to come home and bring us the gifts, they bring us the wisdom, they bring us the insight, they bring us the lessons, they bring us the peace that comes with mastering ourselves. And as I continue to open the door and have an open door policy with all aspects of myself and welcome them home, man, that's when things become so vital and so vibrant and more fully realized. Now it's not just a two-dimensional flat experience. Now it's not just a binary good or bad, light or dark, masculine, feminine, right or wrong 3D experience. Now I get to move into these higher levels of awareness, this fifth dimensional experience where it is all present right here, right now, all of the time. And I know that I am the light and the dark, the villain and the hero, the victim and the perpetrator. I am all of it. I am all of it. And so when I encompass it all and I house it all and I put my arms around it all and I pull it into myself, that's when these parts of myself that used to have so much power over me and used to trigger me and send me off into asshole land or send me off into victim mode or whatever, I see that they don't really have power anymore because I see that they're part of me. Right? The thumb is not more powerful than my entire body. It is just an aspect. And when the thumb shows up, I can be triggered and go, oh my God, here we go, the thumb again. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Or I just look at it and go, yep, that's me. That's part of me. And I get to decide how much space, how much room, how much of the spotlight this part of me currently gets. So I just wanted to come on and chat, to say hi, to let you guys know about the Solstice energy gathering on the 21st. So 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific time. It's an hour. It's done online via Zoom. Everyone that signs up and registers gets the MP3. I do have the MP3 for the 12/12 energy gathering available. I'll put the link in the description. So if you want to download that, listen to it, and then register for the one on the 21st to give yourself sort of both ends of the bookend. Certainly do that because it's going to be a really, really powerful experience on the 21st to sort of cap off this 9 days between the 12th and the 21st. And just be present, be patient, be kind with yourself. Just allow yourself to be where you are. Allow yourself to have the experience that you're having. Understand that if something needs to be healed, it'll become clear. If something needs to be loved and released, it'll become clear. And if something just needs to continue to hang out, then that's fine too. I think it's about letting ourselves off the hook and understanding, I always think of, when I think of our co-creation with our team, our light team, our guides, the universe, God, the angels, whatever you call it, the God squad, it's co-creation is a game of catch. So when the ball is in my court, I know that it's time to take action. Like, oh, okay, I have the motivation, I have the inspiration, I have the epiphany, so it's time for me to move forward and do something. Then I take action, then I show up, then I answer, and then the ball gets thrown back into the hands of my helpers, my non-physical team. And so when it's in their hands, as it is this week, my job is just to chill out. My job is just to be present. My job is to stay focused. My job is to be mindful. My job is to be intentional. My job is to check in. Okay, what's going on? Mind, body, spirit, emotions, energy, just kind of checking in. What's up? What's happening? And just trust that so much is being done on my behalf because it's co-creation. We're not in this alone. We are never in this alone. We are always connected to the fullness of who we are. And more than anything right now, what we are seeing is that the work that we have done this year, especially since June, has been to create more room for ourselves to be present. So as I let shit go, as I clear the space, as I, heal stuff and transform stuff and finally reconcile stuff, then I see this massive space opens up within me so more of my higher aspects can now come in and take up room, can really be present with me. So more than anything, if you want a way to keep yourself centered, if you want a way to sort of keep yourself in the moment and stay sort of on track, if we want to think of it that way, when you find yourself being triggered, when you find yourself off the game, when you find yourself spinning out or whatever, or suddenly feeling like, oh my God, I want to scream at my grandfather or my racist uncle or whatever it is, just take a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, okay, in this moment, how can I allow more of my fullness to be present? How can I allow more of myself to be present? How can I expand to let in more light? Because ascension is also about descension, right? We talk a lot about ascension, and here's the way I look at it, is ascension is for the human, right? I'm doing everything I can to free myself of these dense, heavy, old, bullshit stories and constructs and beliefs and patterns. And as I clear them, my frequency and my vibration rises. And also energetically, my higher self, my creator self, my soul, my spirit, whatever you call it, the universal flow, can now descend to meet me, because all of creation is going through this process right now. Don't get it twisted and think that it's only the human experience that's being affected right now. A rising tide raises all boats. So as I create more room in myself for that higher divine frequency to move in, it descends, and my higher self, my creator self, Big Andrew is what I call it, says, oh, fuck yeah, now I can move in. Now I have more space to bring in more information, more space to bring in more light, more space to bring in more compassion, more unconditional love, more understanding, more insight, more clarity, whatever. So it's about more than anything, just receiving your fullness, receiving your truth, receiving your wisdom, because it's already here. It's already here. This is what I know to be true. And I say this all the time in the Mastery Mentorship Program, which, by the way, the discount for the Mastery Mentorship Program is effective through the end of the year. And then in January, it goes back up to full price. But one of the things that we talk a lot about in Mastery Mentorship is this work is not about finding answers. You already have the answers. I promise you, the answer that you are seeking is already there. What this work is about is asking new questions. What this work is about is creating new muscle memory. This work is about creating new habits. This work is about creating new patterns that align and are congruent with the truth that I am a master, powerful creator who came here to have an experience that would remind me of it. And so how does the pinnacle athlete, how does the master athlete get good? Through challenge. I need challenge and competition to remind me of how good I am, to remind me of how powerful I am, to remind me of how strong I am. So much of what we went through this year was to really wake us up and go, wait a minute, girl, do you really want to live this way? Do you really want this to be your truth? Do you really want this to be the lens that you see the world through? And if it's not, that's cool. You can let it go and then come back to the truth, which was always there. It was just covered up by the old bullshit pattern or story or pain or wound or whatever. And as I clear that and I reconcile it and I heal it and it moves out of my field, because now I've untangled that knot, so that just opens up a space now, right? So just be present. Let yourself be in receipt of your truth. And when you find yourself triggered or ready to fly off the handle at the airport or the dinner table or the self-checkout line or in traffic or wherever your hot zone is, take a stop, take a minute, take a breath, take a beat, and just ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do right now to create more space for myself? Let me expand to receive my fullness. Let me expand to receive the truth. Let me expand to receive the influx of the light and the energy. So that's really what the next few days are about. And that's why I do these energy gatherings, is so that we can come together and mindfully set our intention to receive this influx of energy. So again, I'll put the link for the one on the Friday the 21st in the description. I'll also put the one on the 12th. If you want to download the MP3, you can do that. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's always amazing. That's the key, is that, what's that platitude? Things always work out in the end. So if things aren't working out, it's because it's not the end. So just stay with yourself. Be present with yourself. Just be there. Be in that observer's perch and just watch as things are unfolding. Now, the observer's perch doesn't mean inaction. The observer's perch means I take assessment and, sort of an inventory of what's happening right now, and then I decide. I find my alignment and then I choose. I find my truth and then I act. I find my center and then I move. So it's never about inaction. It's about observing from that highest level of truth and going, oh, okay, I see. And then you decide. So whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate, I hope that you have a fabulous holiday. If you are going to be with family or with friends or loved ones or by yourself over the next couple of weeks, just love yourself, be present, be still, be kind, be silent. count to 10, count to 100, count to 1,000 if you need to before you speak. If things start getting really heated, excuse yourself into the bathroom and just go and like do some deep breathing and look in the mirror and remind yourself, I am love, I am compassion, I am infinite, I am eternal, or whatever you need to do. And just, trust it. Trust it. You've got this. You've got it. It's fine. It's fine. Just trust it and let it be. And as we move towards the new year and move into 2019, because there's a big energy influx that's coming in on the 21st. So a lot of what's happening right now too is just about rest and just recharging before this next wave of energy comes in and sort of pushes us forward as we proceed into 2019. But we'll get to that eventually. That's it, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today, for spending some time with me. I'm going to finish my coffee here. I'm going to go do some exercise, get a little workout in before I proceed with doing absolutely nothing for the rest of the day. I love you guys. Have a happy holiday. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Talk to you guys soon.